You're listening to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the community for the best sales and marketing professionals in the aviation industry. You can't learn to fly just from a book. You learn from other pilots who know the tools, the skills, and the territory. Your hosts, John and Paula Williams, are your sales and marketing test pilots. They take the risks for you and share strategies, relevant examples, hacks, and how-tos. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss a thing.
So today we are doing our book club discussion on how to make the most of trade shows, which was our selection for June. So hopefully people have had an opportunity to read it and think about it and everything else. And trade shows are a huge thing in aviation, aren't they, John?
Absolutely they are.
Okay, so you've been to aviation trade shows. What was your biggest first impression?
The largesse. Everybody's there. Well, at the national shows, NBAA, it's unbelievably large. Even the regionals are large.
That's true. And NBAA is probably one of the biggest organizations that has trade shows, but they also have the AMT organization produces trade shows. HAI, the helicopter organization, produces trade shows. There's literally hundreds of them. And if you look at the Aviation Service Directory, you can see in our events calendar, not hundreds, because we do try to keep it a little bit to a dull roar. And we do have a bias toward, those in the United States because most of our clients are here. But it is absolutely astonishing the number of aviation trade shows that have cropped up in the last, what would you say, 10, 15 years? Probably.
HAI and NBAA, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of inventory there, and that's not counting the static displays, the NBAA.
Exactly. I know. They actually shut down the strip in Las Vegas when they have it there, to bring the airplanes from McCarran Airport to the convention center. And I think in Orlando there's something similar where they have a parade in the middle of the night of airplanes in various states of disassembly coming down the street on their way to the event, which is almost as cool as the event itself, right?
Well, I don't know about that.
But it's pretty cool to see.
It's pretty amazing to watch if you stay up late and watch that happen.
Exactly. So, this is one of the most traditional and one of the most respected forms of marketing in the aviation industry. So, anyway, when we got into the book, I had to laugh when I got to the first part about why Steve Miller hated trade shows. And, he first started going to trade shows, and his first impression was basically that it was so noisy and so chaotic that there was no way anybody could possibly do business here. And also, the only reason that he thought his company was doing trade shows was because they couldn't not do trade shows. If they ever stopped doing trade shows, everybody would wonder why they're not there. So it was
which is a concern.
Which is a concern. So he absolutely hated trade shows to start with before he started doing some work on turning that around and figuring out ways to make it more productive for himself. But I can totally sympathize. Can you?
It is very noisy.
Mm-hmm.
We've recorded interviews at those places, and we tried it on the floor.
Yeah, those turned out to be almost unusable.
But then what we did, we take those people and go to an unused room or hallway, and the noise level is such that you can edit it out. So it'll work.
Yeah. So I think the main thing is you just have to go in with a plan. And this book was actually really good preparation, I think, and really good timing. Because, if you're starting now and you're planning to go to the biggest show of the year, which is NBAA in October, you have a pretty good chance of getting your stuff together and going in knowing what to expect, and also having a plan of what you're going to do and not being fazed by all this chaos and noise and ridiculousness, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the first thing you have to do is set your budget. And the first year that we did trade shows, we completely blew the lid off of our budget, along with everything else, because we didn't really know what to expect. We'd been to trade shows in other industries, but aviation is a little bit different.
And pricier.
get pricier. The competition is different, but everything costs money.
Yes. If you've not been to one, prepare to be shocked, not just at the cost, but at the fact that when you opt for a contract for a booth, that's what you get is a space on the floor, no carpet, no desk, no trash can, nobody to vacuum the place at night, no electricity, no internet. Let's see, what do you get? You get a backdrop to separate you from the other booths.
Right?
And I think that's about it.
I think you get a little table, it depends on the show, but you get maybe a little bare bones little table and a folding chair. Or something along those lines. But you really do want to...
Something pretty much totally unusable.
Right. If your intention is to make a good impression, and it should be, and you're planning on exhibiting at a trade show, then you really want to make sure that you plan that out. And if you don't plan to exhibit, and that is a perfectly fine option, just to go to a show with the intention of networking and having other objectives besides exhibiting in a booth, then you still want to plan on your expenses and other kinds of things. And you really want to use a checklist, find out what's expected, what's provided, what costs extra, and read all those documents very carefully before you get
Oh, you
started.
do get one other thing. They give you about a 6-inch by 3-foot cardboard mat sign with your name on it.
Right. Exactly. Can't forget that. But most people cover that up with their own booth
they don't even
graphics
give you anything to hang it with. You have to do that yourself if you're going to use it at all.
Yeah, the first time we showed up, there was that sign right there on the table. And we hadn't brought any wire. We hadn't brought any duct tape. We're
Scrambling.
scrambling. A visit to Home Depot later. We're somewhat up and running. But yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you're prepared. And if this is your first trade show, what I'd really recommend is that you either hire somebody or get a buddy or something like that that has done that specific show before and has an idea of what is really expected. Okay, so setting your budget, there's some really good information in the book, I think, with some checklist information, and there's also a checklist in our trade show checklist that you can download from our website that gives you a starting place to plan your budget. Okay, all right. In Steve Miller's book, he actually has a pretty nice exhibit planning handbook that has a little bit different slant than our checklist. It goes into a lot more detail about a lot of things, and it's a lot more general. So, if you exhibit at shows other than aviation shows, theirs might be handy for some of those purposes and things, but, you can't be too prepared. And if you're exhibiting, I think the main thing is that you have to have thought through, how are people going to approach your booth? How are you going to attract their attention? Are they going to be able to see from a distance what you do? And are they going to have a reason to come over to your booth, assuming that their first impression of your company is seeing your booth from across a crowded show floor, right?
Actually, if you're going to a trade show, you should start planning it by visiting the trade show first without trying to actually display anything. Start at that point, because then you see the traffic flow, and it doesn't change very much in Orlando for NBAA or Las Vegas for NBAA, and you know what the trade show, you know what the traffic patterns are. Then you can go to the people and say, I want a booth for next year, and I want it in this location. And you'll have a pretty good chance of getting it. If you go there now, you're going to get the dregs, whatever's left.
Right. In fact, it may be
if you
sold
can get
out.
one at all.
Exactly. So, yeah, really, really important to plan your exhibit carefully. And, that goes for whether you're doing a little 10 by 10 or whether you're doing a monster display. And I really recommend, if it's one of your first times at a show, you want to start small, or even don't exhibit, plan on going with the intention of networking, and look at some of the exhibits that you really like and watch how they choreograph the whole flow of people coming into their booth, shaking hands, doing product demos, those kinds of things. But there's no substitute for espionage.
And not only that, but you have to plan your planning. You have to plan how you're going to do the social media for a trade show as well.
That is true. And in fact, we just learned in next month's book, which is the No BS social media book by Kim Walsh Phillips.
More interesting information how to do that.
Exactly. There's some really cool technology that's being used in trade shows nowadays that has never been done before. So more about that in the future. All right. So generating leads and capturing customers. After all, this is why we are there, right?
Precisely.
Cool. So we've done a lot of work, especially in recent webinars and other things, about different ways to generate leads and capture customers. And Steve Miller also has some really good information in the book that has some pretty novel ways of capturing people's information. Of course, a lot of the shows will try to sell you what they call a lead capture system.
Yes, they will.
What do you think of those, John?
Nice try, but they need something different.
Right, come over here so I can scan your badge.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has a little barcode on their badge, and you feel like you're being checked out at the grocery store when they check out your badge, and scan it with this little barcode scanner, and then it basically just puts information into a spreadsheet that you have to make sense of later. So we really, since aviation is such a personal business, and since most of the time we're talking about large transactions, when we're talking about complex transactions, you really want to make fewer contacts, but you want to take lots of notes. So however you can do that discreetly, if you do that on your phone or if you do that on a notepad or whatever, you really want to remember after the show, when you get home, have a little bit more than just a name and a number, or a name and an email address and stuff like that, because you want to do better than just spamming these people. You want to make sure that you've got enough information to say, we talked about this, I know you're from this company, let's continue that conversation now that you're home and have time. So, here are some of the things that you asked about, and here's some more information. So you want to be really, really customized with those kinds of things. So, good stuff. Alternatives to exhibiting, also good. We had talked about this in our last webinar as well. Some of the really cool ways of doing this are to have some kind of a reason to visit people's booths and pick up their business cards, shake their hand, and make that kind of connection. At most trade shows, they don't actually allow you to distribute materials unless you
have rented a booth.
Unless you have rented a booth. That's kind of their way of getting additional revenue from the show. So you want to be discreet, and you want to be very targeted about the way that you do this. So, if you have a list of exhibits at the show and you look at your top 10 most wanted customers, or top 20 or top 30 or however many you have time to plan, and you plan an approach for each of those people, that might be something along the lines of, I saw in the news that you are rolling out a new product, and I have something that may be of interest to you for that reason. So you want to be really, really super targeted and really informed before you make those approaches, right?
Yeah, and if you can limit to the top 10 with select alternatives, you could always plan for a dinner while you're there.
That's true.
But we've done that.
Yeah, exactly. So, if there are maybe 10 people that you really, really want to meet with, you can invite them to an event of your own that is off-site. So that's a wonderful thing. And, you may want to invite them together as, especially if they're existing customers and you want to, your purpose is to cement those relationships and maybe acquire testimonials or sell them an upgrade or whatever your intention is with each of those customers. You might want to put them together in a room.
Yeah, because prospective clients or customers would then talk to guys that are already there, and that's, you can just stand back and sip your drink and we'll let it happen.
Exactly. Let them do the work for you, right? Because you're there to socialize, so, that happens pretty naturally, and that's a good way of doing this. Telemarketing. Now, this is something that I had never really put together with trade shows, but it can be really effective before and after the show. So to start with, if you have a list of your top 10 most wanted customers, you can call them, put together a really nice outline of, the things that you want to talk to them about before you get to the show so that they're expecting your visit, or you've already made an appointment. That's a really good way to maximize your time. Make sure you get your schedule booked solid so that you're making a good use of that expense of being there. So telemarketing ahead of the show. If you're exhibiting, of course, you want to go through your whole client list and you want to talk to everybody that you possibly can and say, are you going to be in Orlando for NBAA? We're going to be there. We're going to be in booth number blah, and you should come by because fill in the blank, right?
So they have a booth number blah?
You should come by our booth number 497. Now, whoever has booth number 497 is going to get a lot of unsolicited visits. And here's why you should come and visit us. And tell them about the contest that you're having, or the product demo that you're doing, or whatever it is that you have planned. So telemarketing ahead of the show, very, very important. A lot of people do this with postcards, but not very many people do it with the phone, right?
Well, not many people do it at all.
Not many people do it at all. So I think the phone is going to be a lot more effective for you, because then you're actually kind of having a personal touch there.
Particularly if you already have a reason to talk to folks.
Right. And everybody on your prospect list, you want to make sure that you talk to them and say, I know you've been talking with us about this product for a while and you've been looking into it. Let's sit down and have a look at it in person while you're here. So, we're going to be in booth. We're going to be in this location. Let's put you down for an appointment so that I can devote my time to you. And, a lot of booths will have kind of a secluded area where you can actually have a conversation without all the noise and hubbub going on. And then you can serve them a drink. You can, go through your product demo in person and be a lot more effective that way. After the show, some people will go through their list and make one phone call. How many phone calls do you get after dropping cards at a show, John?
0.
0? Not one?
Never.
I get some. I get, if I've dropped 100 cards, I might get, 3 or 4 calls. So, but I drop a lot more cards than you do because I'm trying to win all the contests.
Well, the interesting thing is, and in one of our presentations or podcasts is a list of how many contacts you need to make a sale.
Right, that's a pretty famous list.
I don't know where it's from, but the number is much higher than you would think.
Right. And in the aviation industry, it's even higher than that.
Right.
So, the very basics of what people advise that you do is just go through your list and make a call to everybody and thank them for coming by your booth. Let them know if they've won the contest or whatever it is, and follow up with any questions that they have. That's the bare minimum that you should be doing. We recommend a much more customized approach, and that really depends, like we talked about, on having extensive notes on everybody that visited your booth and getting really good at doing that well and discreetly. When we've done booths, we alternate so that, I talk to somebody and then I get to go make notes for a couple of minutes while somebody else takes care of the next person. And then that way we have really good notes about each conversation and each person that visited and the things that we talked about, so that I remember after the show, this is what this person looked like, this is what where they're from, and what their concerns and questions were.
And the other thing along with that is, this is part of sales, but don't deselect somebody from calling them because you don't think they'll buy. Let them talk you out of it first.
Right. There's a book called Go for No. And that's actually a pretty decent sales strategy. I think that's a Sandler thing, right?
Yes. Well, a number of folks do it, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I would just add that in there as part of the call-up thing.
Exactly. And there is nothing wrong. In fact, in our first conversation on a phone call as a follow-up, it is perfectly fine to tell me that you're not interested. And if that's the case, I'm going to cross you off my list and I won't bother you again. But if you do have an interest, I want to make sure that we're answering your questions and taking it to the next step. All right, cool. So, secrets of successful trade shows. What's your top 3 list, maybe, or top 1?
I mean, if we're going to a trade show and we're going to have a booth.
Well, let's do one for exhibitors and one for networkers.
Well, if I'm going to exhibit, I think the top number one secret, which I can whisper, is planning, and about a year in advance minimum. Because that way, when you get there, you just execution.
Right. So then you can relax and you're not sweating the details when you should be socializing and spending time with customers.
And you've got everything in place. You know you're comfortable, and you can concentrate on drawing people into the booth. And you know you're going to have some people show up anyway. So.
And you're not messing with the extension cords and duct tape while people are coming to the booth that you should be socializing with. True. Good point. All right. How about for networkers? Number one tip.
It would probably revolve around planning as well, because every show nowadays has got a Twitter board up somewhere. They've got email. There's all kinds of stuff going on with Facebook and everything else at trade shows. They'll have even I forgot what they call them, but where you meet people to network for that purpose.
Like coffee socials and mixers.
So, and you need to have planned and know where to look for, and then join those before you ever get there.
Right. So have a schedule for yourself. You might want to keep it flexible because there's always weird things that happen. Right. But have a schedule for yourself. I think that's really important. And I totally agree. I think my number one tip, especially for networkers, well, actually for everyone, is to have a fantastic 15-second sales presentation. For when people ask you, what do you do? That should just roll off your tongue really easily. You shouldn't be stammering and staring at your shoes and have the deer in the headlights look, because you're there for a reason. It's not like the trade show is a surprise to you. You were expecting to be asked this question, and it really should be polished and it should be professional, and it doesn't have to sound stilted. In fact, the more you practice this, the better it gets.
Sure, it should just be confident. I sell ducks. Why? What do you do?
Exactly. So, what somebody asks you, John, what does ABCI do?
We sell marketing.
We help aviation companies sell more of their products and services.
That's the reason I did that, so you could.
I know. No, we don't sell marketing.
Excuse me.
That was good, actually. And really, you should think about it from the customer's perspective. What do you do? How do you help people? And, there's an outline that we'll link to from our website that talks about some suggested outlines for those 15-second sales presentations.
And actually, she's right. She's been in marketing for 25 or more years, and I've been to probably every sales course in the books all the way around, and I don't consider myself to be a good salesperson. However, I know what you should be doing and can show you how to do it.
Exactly. All right, so good secrets. All right, so what is Steve Miller's follow-up policy?
Follow up.
Follow up. Do it. Right, exactly. And, I think he follows two of the same tenets as what we recommend, so we'll emphasize the things we agree on, right? One of them is that you're really looking to disqualify people as quickly as possible. So if someone doesn't have an interest in your product or service, you're not spending a lot of time and money following up with people who don't have the money, authority, or need for your product. That's thing number one. And thing number two is if somebody is qualified, then of course you want to stick with them for as long as it takes. And that would be newsletters, that would be phone calls, that would be anything that you can do in your sales process to stay connected with them, in general, at least once a week, while they're going through the process, unless they tell you, I'm going to be interested at the beginning of the second quarter when my budget comes due or whatever, in which case you're going to want to send them really low-key materials like newsletters and so on, just so that they don't forget about you in the interim, right? Okay. Cool. So, good book. What do you think? Scale of 1 to 10.
I think with respect to aviation, it's probably 9.5.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I think I'd give it probably a 7. We did get some comments from some folks in the class that it is a little bit dated, which is true. But as books go, books are always dated, and I love books because you can really sink your teeth into some subject matter in a way that you really can't with all the flotsam and jetsam on the internet. So the fact that it is a book gives it permission to be somewhat dated in my mind. What do you think, John?
Yep. Schools are always good.
True. Speaking of dated, this is the hardest subject to write a book about. Next month, we're going to be talking about the No BS Guide to Direct Response Social Media Marketing by Kim Walsh-Phillips. And we're actually going to have Kim on our podcast. I'm really looking forward to that interview. That's going to be a lot of fun. We met her actually several times. She's part of a networking group marketing group that we belong to. And she has some really fantastic ideas about some really new technology. So that's going to be cool. So go sell more stuff.
Yep. America Needs the Business by Zig Ziglar.
Right. Absolutely. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Ciao.
Thanks for joining us for Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the best place to learn what really works in sales and marketing in the aviation industry. Remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating.
You could.